Yep, okay, we can begin.
Okay. Nos with that, good evening and welcome to this meeting of Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee on Wednesday the 15th of December. My name is Nigel Smith and I am the chair of the Economy in Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I can confirm that the committee officer has previously conducted a sound check before the start of the meeting, so I assume that everybody can hear me loud and clear. Can I welcome everybody to today's meeting, where we are all attending remotely. In addition to committee members, we also have non-committee members, cabinet members and officers joining us to assist with our discussion. For those viewing the live stream recording, committee members are identified with a small asterisk next to their name. The meeting will be recorded and live streamed and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should, however, the streaming fail, we will continue to record that meeting and it will be available through the council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that the translation service is available and for those and for you to choose your language of choice. If you wish to speak, please use the raised hand function. You can also use the chat facility. All microphones will be muted. If you have indicated your intention to speak, you'll be invited to turn on your microphone. If you leave your device for any reason, can I please ask that you ensure that it is muted and that you turn off your video feed? Can I remind members that there is an exempt item on the agenda today and that you should there be any person able to hear any confidential exempt items being discussed. So please make sure that you use your headset if at all possible. Moving on to the agenda, we have apologies for absence.
Apologies for absence have been received from Councillors Samantha Cotton, Ian Jenkins and Abdul Khan. He's not a member of the committee, but Councillor Frank Bradfield also wanted to submit his apologies.
Thank you very much, Sally. Thank you for that. The next item is declaration of interest. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jeffrey.
Apologies from Councillor David Johnson.
Can you record those, please, Sally?
Yep, noted. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next item is declarations of interest. I would like to remind members that they must declare the nature of their declaration of a personal interest. Councillor Phil Capper. Philip, have you got your hand up? No? Okay. Councillor Jeffrey, have you got a declaration?
Yes, page 53, the combined forward work programme.
Yeah.
To consider a report in relation to the disposal of tier prints. I work for that company, so if it's discussed, I will leave. And if Dawn could send me the appropriate paperwork, please. Thank you.
Of course I will, Councillor Jeff.
Thank you.
Jane Richardson, do you have a declaration?
Yes, please, Chair. In regard to item 8, I have a personal relationship with the petitioner, so I will not take part in that discussion or offer any advice or assistance on that item.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Philip Capper.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was just trying to unmute before. Yeah, I'm declaring interest in item 8. It's not a prejudicial interest, but Dawn is the Vice Chair of Governors at Brynellian and I'm the Chair of Governors there. So, but it's not a prejudicial interest.
Okay, thank you for declaring that.
And my interest is not prejudicial either, Chair. I'm on the Governors with Dawn as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Bob.
Chair, I think Pat Hebron, I think she had to leave the meeting and she's come back in, so she may well also want to declare an interest. She's just this second come back in the meeting, so.
Okay.
Oh, she's coming back in. Just bear with us.
Thank you. Councillor Bob, if you can hear me, can you please mute your microphone?
Hi, Councillor Pat. We're on declarations of interest. I don't know whether you want to. I know you went out to the meeting, so perhaps you want to declare your interest because we are on that item.
Yeah, I've got a prejudicial interest. I know the resident who's joining the meeting relating to the buses, the number 26.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, no problem. We will put you in the waiting room when the item's being discussed, Councillor Pat.
Okay, so we'll now move on to item 3, which is urgent matters. Don't think there are any.
No, not aware of any, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 4 is to approve and sign as a correct record the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 17th of November this year, and they're on pages 4 to 11. I presume that members have read the minutes. Councillor Phil Capper?
Yeah, I propose, Mr. Chairman.
I second, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, thank you very much. So they are proposed by Councillor Phil Capper and seconded by Councillor John Roberts. If members are happy with those minutes, could you please show by raising your hands? Thank you. Those have been approved. Thank you very much. So item 5 is to receive a note of the minutes of the local area forum central, which was held on the 10th of November. And this will be presented by Councillor Brian Cossey, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm moving the minutes of the local area forum central. The meeting held on the 10th of November was a true and correct record.
Thank you for that, Councillor Brian. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much,
Brian
Councillor
can't, sorry, Councillor Nigel. Councillor Brian can't actually propose because he's not a member of the committee. So I need a member of the committee to propose, to note them.
I'll propose, Mr. Chairman. I was there.
So Councillor John Roberts is going to propose and Councillor
I'll
Gelb
second.
is going to second. If members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to item 5.2, which is to receive and note the minutes of the local area forum East, which was held on the 11th of November, and these will be presented by Councillor Mark Baker. Good evening, Mark.
I don't think Councillor Mark has joined us.
Okay. Councillor Alan Hunter?
No, he's not with us either.
Okay.
So it'll just be a case of proposing and seconding to note the minutes.
Chair, could you present them, Chair?
I will present them as a member.
Yeah, because you were there, weren't you?
So yeah, I'm just happy to present the minutes and propose that they are accepted as a proper record of that meeting.
I'd be happy to second them, Chair.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Charlie McCoubrey, the leader. If all members are happy with that, could you please raise your
Councillor Charlie can't second it. It has to be a member of the committee.
Okay, Councillor Jeffrey Corrie then will second those. And if you're happy, members, could you please show by raising your hands? Yeah, we'll take those as a proper record then. Thank you very much for that. We now move on to item 5.3, which is to receive and note the minutes of the local area forum South, which was held on the 8th of November. And these are going to be presented by Councillor Garfield. Good evening, Councillor Garfield. Are you here?
No, I don't think he's with us.
Okay, Councillor Elizabeth Roberts, are you here, Liz?
I don't think she's joined us either. No.
Having a bad day, Nigel.
Certainly are. It's COVID times, Councillor Philip. So is anybody willing to propose if they are a member of the local area forum South?
Yes, I'll propose.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Given that Aaron's proposed, I'm prepared to second.
Okay. Is that permissible, Dawn?
Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Phil is a member of this committee and he can second that he's noting them, so that's absolutely fine.
Okay, so if members are happy then could they please show by raising their hands? Thank you very much. We'll take those minutes as a proper record. So item 5.4, which is to receive the minutes of the local area forum West, which was held on the 15th of November. And these are going to be presented by Councillor Ken Stevens, the chair, if he's here. Councillor Ken?
No. No. Chair, I'll propose these are correct version of the meetings I propose.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Joe. Do we have a seconder for that, for those minutes? Any members of the West Area Forum here?
No. No.
You're only noting the minutes, you're not actually approving them because obviously the committee themselves will approve them. So anybody from this committee can note, just second the proposal.
All right. Do I have a seconder, Councillor Geoffrey Corrie? Thank you. So we'll note those minutes. Could you please raise your hand if you're happy for that? Lovely. Thank you very much. So item 5.5 is to receive and note the minutes of the local area forum North, which was held on the 2nd of November. And these are going to be presented by Councillor Harry Saville. I have seen Harry earlier.
I am here, Chair. Lucky for once, aren't we? Right,
Yes.
yeah. Members, the minutes from the last meeting of local area forum North are included. I trust that you've all had a chance to read the agenda. I'd like to propose that we note the minutes.
Okay.
I'll second those.
Thank
you
Carol.
very much, Councillor Carroll. So if members are happy to note those minutes, could you please show by raising your hands? Lovely. Thank you very much. So we'll now move on to then item 6, which is the forward work programme for the Economy and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the combined forward work programme. And this will be presented by Dawn Hughes, our Scrutiny Committee Service Officer.
Thanks,
Hi,
Chair.
Dawn.
Hi, thank you, Chair. So can I just advise members of a few changes to the forward plan since it was last published? So we've organised a special meeting of the Economy and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee for Thursday, the 10th of Feb. This is to consider the Gypsy and Traveller Needs Assessment, the Local Energy Plan and the Regional Economic Framework, because as you can see, our forward plan is quite busy, so there was a requirement for a special meeting. Also, due to the local elections in May, the chairs and vice chairs have requested that I review the forward plans to take account of the pre-election period, which does start around the 18th of March. Therefore, the meeting scheduled for the 23rd is probably likely to be cancelled unless there's any urgent matters that need to be considered. And any reports will either be brought forward prior to the pre-election period or delayed post-elections, depending on the matters that are on the forward plan. So that's my update, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions or queries on the forward work programme? Doesn't look like it. So is somebody happy to propose that we accept the forward work programme? Yeah, Councillor Geoffrey Corrie was that, and Councillor Pat Hebron to second. If members are happy, could you please show by raising your hands? Thank you. I think that's been approved, Dawn.
Yes, thank you, members. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, so we'll move on to item 7 now, which is questions to Cabinet members. I don't think there are any.
No questions, Chair.
All right, thank you. So we'll now move on to item 8, which is to receive an e-petition on behalf of the residents to reinstate the full 26 bus service, reference 139, and this is on page 82. And in line with the public engagement protocol, the lead petitioner, Mrs. Dawn McGuinness, is here this evening. Good evening, Dawn.
Good evening.
Would you like to say a few words to the members of the committee?
Yes, please.
Can I just pop in, Chair? Dawn, you've got 3 minutes to. I think I sent you all the instructions, didn't I? So you've got 3 minutes to present your petition, give a brief overview, and say how many signatures you've had. Because I know when we published the agenda, it hadn't quite closed. So.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, the reason I raised the petition is to sort of bring to the council's attention how important this bus service is to residents on the Great Orme, and how it had been slashed from 11 buses per day down to 4, which is pretty much a 65% reduction in service. And for those of you who know the Great Orme, it's not easy to walk up and down, even when you're fit. But when we have many residents up here who are elderly, I have a neighbour 2 doors down who is blind, and his wife also has partial sight, so they don't drive. He's had to walk in the rain with his guide dog up and down the Orme to make meetings because this service has been cut so much. And having spoken to the officer, I just feel that the council haven't done enough on behalf of residents here. So we were told by Steph Smith that Arriva said it's either the reduction or no service. as the council subsidise this service, that would make you the customers, and so to be able to just to take instructions from Arriva on how this should be done, I don't think is good enough, and I don't feel it has been fought well enough on behalf of the residents. I know subsequently I've been told that you have reduced your subsidy, but I think this is a business decision that Arriva have made. I've sought to find out what other services have cut. We all know it's on the news every day that there's a shortage of bus drivers. But if you compare the cutting of this service compared to other services which are more financially viable for Arriva, they've just basically chosen this as for business reasons, and they could have moved bus drivers from other routes, and the 12, for instance, runs every 15 to 20 minutes. So they could have taken drivers off that and put them on the 26, and to route learn is a very quick thing. I know, because I have family members who work as bus drivers, and it would take just a couple of days to learn a new route. So there were options for Arriva. I don't feel that the council pursued these enough, and I don't feel they argued hard enough on behalf of the residents, and it's not just the residents on the
30 seconds remaining.
Okay, so finally, I believe it's going to be reinstated on the 1st of January. I know that many people have said that these promises were made before, so we've had no full assurances on this. So I would like full assurances that is going to happen as of the new year, and that if this sort of thing happens again in the future, that the council would look to protect this in the way that they would a community transport.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that summary of your petition. Do any members wish to make comment? Councillor Greg Robbins.
Yeah, thank you for letting me speak, Chair. I've got to say the amount of services that Arriva have reduced has been a great concern to the council, and certainly in the environment and transportation portfolio. At the same time, they reduced to 26, they reduced to 27, the 13 and 25. The blatant comment coming back from them is we don't have the drivers. We are working to train them. We are hoping to have the service back up on the 1st of January. I should point out there was numerous correspondence and meetings with Arriva saying how disappointed we were with this, and particularly in regard to the Orme, because it is a little bit more difficult to reach than some of the other routes that have been reduced. And it's a great concern, especially the timings in connection with school transport connections, although we did actually modify that. I've got to say, it's not within the council's power or remit under the legislation and the agreements we have to be able to instruct a commercial company. We can just put on as much pressure as we reasonably can, and that's what we have done. And as far as we currently know, it is due to be reinstated to full service beginning week in January, assuming there's no other changes in other legislation.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your comments, Greg. I think it would be quite welcome for Mrs. McGuinness to hear that we have been talking with Arriva to try and get this reinstated, and we genuinely hope that in January it will come to fruition. Councillor Harry Saville.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, for letting me come in on this. Look, I think first of all, I'd actually really like to thank Dawn for the point she's made about the bus service after 5 p.m. I'd be very grateful if the council could go back to Arriva and see whether or not the current reduced service, I get that it is due to increase in frequency from the beginning of January, all things being equal. But I'd be grateful if the council could go and see whether or not some alteration could be made to that final service to allow it to run slightly later and be more convenient for residents living on the Orme. I take on board entirely the point made about driver shortages, and that was certainly my understanding. What I was also led to believe was that if we look at some of the Conway contracted services in other parts of the county, particularly the south, that where drivers weren't available, the operator simply just completely cut their local authority subsidised services to protect their commercial ones entirely, unlike Arriva, who I understand have cut back on some of their commercial services. That aside, I do take on the point about it being a financial decision. I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I wonder if it is worth exploring. And I would encourage us all to cast our minds back to January this year, when we discussed BES 2, which was the bus emergency scheme, a initiative, a Welsh Government initiative that this council was effectively forced to sign up to, where the Welsh Government promised that bus companies would be protected financially and enabled to deliver their services effectively up until July 2022. So obviously that probably still applies now. Now, what I'd like to know is we've obviously come to a situation here where Arriva aren't able to deliver a service. There aren't alternative providers who are able to deliver a service locally. I'd like to know what's actually become for promises that were made under that BES 2 initiative. I remember when we decided to support it as a council back in January, that a further report on bus sector reform was going to come to this committee. So I wondered, could that come sooner rather than later? And could we have an explanation as to how this sort of situation has been able to develop on the watch of a number of organisations, but to rattle them off, Arriva themselves, Transport for Wales, the Welsh Government, Flintshire County Council, who are the lead authority here, and also with Conway, because this seems to be a complete mess, which seems or should have been covered by this BES 2 scheme. So I'd really, really appreciate an answer to that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dawn, who do you think might have an answer to that question?
I don't know. I think Geraint and Andy Wilkinson are in the meeting. I don't know whether they will be able to provide any answers to that.
Harry, you got your hand up?
Here, I'll start perhaps the Deputy Minister, Lee Waters, his policy.
I don't think he's on this meeting this evening.
Why don't we get him here sometime?
Indeed. Geraint, do you have any light to shed?
I'm not in a position to answer any question about Lee Waters' policies, I'm afraid. But I think I have to recognise the difficulties that this operator has had in maintaining this and other services in Conway and further afield during this period. And the reality is that if there aren't any drivers that he can get, the same problem, the same situation arises with other providers. We have explored, we have tried to push the opportunity of changing routes to accommodate with other service providers, but we're getting the same answer. The operator did adjust his service in October, and he has continued to maintain that it's still not possible to provide full service at this location at this time. In terms of instructing, yes, it's easy to instruct. It's whether or not you can enforce. It's whether or not he can actually provide that service. And it's pretty clear from the information he's provided to my staff that the service cannot be provided at this time. I have heard promises made around the January start date, and we have no reason to believe that we won't resume normal service in January. But this time last year, we thought things were going to happen that didn't happen, and we, I don't have a crystal ball, but if nothing changes, my expectation is that service will resume in January.
Okay, thank you very much for those comments, Geraint. Councillor Chris Hughes.
Thanks, Chair.
Chris? Yeah.
I'm sure, like many of, I'm sure there will be many of the members who have walked on the Orme. In my youth, I walked up it a few times. I certainly wouldn't be something I'd be keen to do now as I get older. And I'm sure that there will be a large number of people who do live on the Orme who would struggle to walk, and therefore would be reliant on taxis or other things just to get up and down that hill, which is not where we should be. I share the concerns that have been expressed today. We were given assurances that bus companies would be supported through this difficult time, and we know the problems that we've had. We've seen that bus drivers have been going and getting licenses to drive lorries and changing occupation because of the increased salaries available to lorry drivers. So So I think it is something we do need to seek assurances on. We do need to ensure the ballpark has changed from February of last year, but you know, we did see a huge number of bus drivers, from what I can gather, across the UK changing jobs. But at the same time, I think this service, the Orme, is one of the most, although it's close to a town centre, it's still one of the most difficult of locations to actually get to, unless you drive or you have the disposable income to afford to pay for taxis. And I think that the comments that have been made today are, you know, we need to follow that up. We need, whether it's with the minister, whether it's through officers within Geraint's department with Arriva, we need to follow that up, and we need a clear statement for clear information from Arriva as to why they haven't been able to deliver this service. I appreciate we've had some verbal comments on that, but I think we need a formal statement from them to so that we can see that in black and white and understand why they haven't been able to. And then, if necessary, if Welsh Government have let us down here, then we need to be asking them why.
Okay, thank you very much for those comments, Councillor Chris. Councillor Harry, you were feeling that we ought to speak to the minister, and I think Councillor Chris Hughes is of the same thinking. Would you like to propose that we get the leader of the council to write for an explanation?
Well, I was going to throw a little bit of a curveball in. I don't know what Chris will feel about this, but I take Chris's point that a lot has changed since January, but this scheme was supposed to run from January this year through to July next. So I don't take this argument that it should be past its sell-by date or things should have moved on. I've had a look at the minutes from a meeting when we discussed this, and we were due a future report and meeting at some point on reform of the bus sector within Wales. Now, I do wonder whether or not some of the problems have been caused by long-term staffing damage to bus companies. I mean, the point's been made that a lot of bus drivers have left to go and pursue other careers. That's true. I am aware, though, that some bus operators are particularly concerned that support through BES 1 came in, I think, several months after similar support came in Scotland, Northern Ireland and England. And I wonder what sort of damage that's caused to bus companies and whether or not they've been able to recover from that. I think we're able to meet far soon now. I think why not actually have a future meeting on this topic? We could get a representative from Arriva along, as well as Llaw Jones, our two main bus operators, and actually let's invite the Deputy Minister or someone to attend. They can do it far soon. You know, we're not asking the Deputy Minister in reality to come up to Conway. We're asking for him to dial in on his laptop, probably from Cardiff. Let's discuss it in the round and then see where we go from there. I'd be interested to know what Chris thinks about that. I mean, I'm happy to. So
that's your proposal.
But I just feel, truthfully, we spend an awful lot of time in these committees talking amongst ourselves with council officers. No disrespect to officers of this authority, they all do fantastic work. But I wonder if on occasion we could be getting more people from outside the authority in to contribute to our discussions.
Okay, before I bring in Councillor Greg Robbins, Councillor Chris Hughes, what's your thoughts?
I think we need to understand what the solution is, what the problem was. And I agree that we need to talk to our bus companies. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to talk to a minister until we actually have had that conversation with the bus companies. And then once we understand what the issues were, that's the time perhaps to take it further with the minister. But until, I think that I would be prepared to support Councillor Harry in terms of bringing in somebody from the local bus companies so that we can understand that detail, because having that conversation with the minister in the room is talking around him rather than talking to him. We need to do that, and then when we've got a clear understanding of what has occurred, how it's occurred, and what the issues are, that's the time to put the questions to the Minister, I would feel.
Okay, thank you for that. Just hold that thought then. Councillor Greg Robbins.
Yes, thank you for letting me speak again, Chair. Just a couple of points that were raised. We did actually have written correspondence from Arriva stating the issues they were having was down to lack of staffing. I certainly received that. I think the leader did. I'm not sure if it's distributed via the council's distribution group, but we do have that written statement in writing. Regarding the comment about future bus provision, obviously there's some major changes being planned by Welsh Government in this regard. The North Wales Transport Cabinet members had a meeting on the 26th of November to start discussing this, and that won't be coming in until at least the middle of next year at the earliest point. And there's some concerns amongst the members of some of the proposals on that, but obviously that will come out through the North Wales Economic Ambition Board in due course.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Councillor Harry, back to you. Are you happy to accept that Arriva's explanation is it's down to a man shortage or driver shortage?
I mean, if they've put that in writing, you know, we'll take that on board. I wonder whether or not a sensible proposal then, and obviously Chris has said we need to get an explanation from Arriva in writing. We appear to have that. So whether or not a sensible way forward would be to propose that we take on board the comments made by Arriva, we write to the Deputy Minister and we ask what assessment has he made of the impact that driver shortages are having on bus services in North Wales, and how does he feel that his bus support scheme is best placed to respond to those, or something along those lines.
Councillor Chris?
Yeah, I'm happy to support that.
Okay, well, I'll propose it in that case. Chris, if you want to second it.
Okay. So we've got a proposer, and I presume Councillor Chris Hughes is happy to second that.
Yes, Chair.
So we'll put that proposal to the vote if members are happy.
I just check, Councillor Harry, Councillor Chris, is this coming from this committee, or are you going to go ask the leader or the cabinet member to write to them?
My thoughts were the cabinet member.
Fine. So
beyond, I'm flexible as long as it's
fine.
Authority.
Yeah. So as it's a recommendation to cabinet, can we just do the normal roll call? I just wanted to check where you were coming from. That's fine.
Yep.
That's good. Thank you, Dawn.
Yep. Okay. So I'll call out your names. So it's for, against, or abstain. Councillor Carol Beard.
For.
Councillor Phil Capper.
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Councillor Keith Eales.
For.
Councillor Pat Hebrow. Oh, sorry, no, she's in the waiting room. Councillor Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Councillor Gail Jones.
For.
Councillor Don Milne.
For.
Councillor John Roberts.
Obliged.
Councillor Harry Saville.
For.
Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Bob Squire.
Obliged.
Councillor Joan Vaughan.
For.
And Councillor Aaron Wynne.
Obliged.
Yeah, that's unanimous, Chair.
Okay, so that has been approved, Councillor Harry. So we will be asking Cabinet to write, or the Cabinet member to write to the Deputy Minister. Mrs McGuinness, I hope that you understand now that we don't take these things lying down. Councillor Gregg has confirmed that he has been in discussions previously with Arriva, and we genuinely hope that the service will be restored in January. But in the meantime, we'll be getting Councillor Gregg to write to the Deputy Minister, hopefully on your behalf and on behalf of all the other residents of Conway.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate everything that's been said, and it's really great that you're engaging residents in this way and that I've been able to come today. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to get involved. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Okay, members, so we'll now move on to the next item, which is item 9, which is the digital deposit return and recycling, which is going to be presented by Jim Espley, our waste manager, and it's on pages 83 to 92. Good evening, Jim.
Oh, good evening. Hi. So I do have a PowerPoint to share, which I can try and display. More used to using Teams and Zoom, so I'll have a go, and someone can shout up and let me know whether they can see it or not. That'd be really helpful. Let's have a go. Slideshow from the beginning. Whoops. Okay, can we see that?
Yes, we can.
Great stuff. Okay, so yeah, what I'm going to talk about is, I'll make sure my teeth are in for this, digital deposit return schemes. It's a really exciting research and development project that we've been involved in. It's about the development of alternative approaches to what are the usual approach to deposit return. So, the fact that we're in at this from the very start of things gives us a real sort of a position of strength in terms of being able to influence policy. So this might be familiar to some of you. I would love to say, looking at that old Bedford wagon there, that I'm too young to actually remember that, but unfortunately I do remember them really, really well. Reason I probably still remember it really clearly is because I did actually pinch 4 empty bottles of Corona Pop from my auntie's house and redeemed 20p a long time ago, and I've lived with the shame of that ever since. But yeah, the Corona Pop van, aptly named, I suppose, in the current climate. It's the first sort of deposit return scheme I remember, and it's ahead of its time really, because they were glass bottles that we used on the scheme, and as we all know, that the reuse is better than excuse me, reuse is better than recycling, and that's what happened with this. Same as mill bottles, the empty glass was picked up and then returned, reused. Okay, so the traditional approach in Europe is to collect and administer deposit returns via reverse vending machines. So the picture on the left is something which I can see a lot of sense in. So this is for where people who are on the go, they might buy a product which has got a deposit on it. They'll consume it, and as they're out and about, they can put it back into the vending machine, redeem the deposit, and that's that's the job done. The picture on the right doesn't make as much sense to me. That seems to indicate that we should be collecting our recycling that we produce at home, taking it to a reverse vending machine, feeding it into the machine, and sort of redeeming our deposits that way. That doesn't really seem to be a convenient or efficient way of doing things. So is there an alternative approach to doing it? Okay. So yeah, we think there is an alternative approach, and that's by doing it digitally. So what we need to be thinking of is we've got an existing collection infrastructure within Wales, and where we collect from the curbside already, so we can utilise that. It avoids the setup cost of establishing reverse vending machine networks across, which would be really, really expensive, and the collection infrastructure to go and service those reverse vending machines. So there's a lot of cost avoidance in terms of if we can do utilize the system that we've already got. It provides more consumer convenience and choice, and also importantly, what happens is that we would be able to retain quality recycling within the materials that we're collecting from the curbside, and that's actually a really important thing for us, because those higher value products, those higher value materials like aluminium and the different higher grade plastics, we obviously bale those up, we sell them, we market to them, and that obviously contributes to the efficient running of the collection service. So this slide is actually the trial that we've run in Colwyn Heights, and I was a bit in two minds of whether to show that, because it does look a little bit busy, a little bit complicated, but it's actually very, very simple. So what the trial involved was a sort of registration sticker being distributed to the homes who were going to participate in the trial. That sticker was simply just placed onto your recycling box, and then with an app on your phone, you scan that registration sticker, and that's your property set up and established. So the second thing was to start redeeming the deposits on the bottles of water that were supplied to the people who participated in the trial. Again, that's a very simple thing. Just open up the app again on your phone, scan the QR code on the bottle, and then simply put that into your recycling box and put it out for collection on your normal day. That sort of starts the redemption process for the deposit, which is sort of completed when the collection crew scan the recycling box when they're putting it into the collection vehicle. So simple as that, really. That was what was run for 4 weeks. Very good participation. Lots of people who were keen to have a go at running this scheme, and yeah, people used it. I think there's certainly things which could be made a little bit easier. I mean, this is important to stress. It's a sort of a research and development proof of concept type approach. So, this is the first step, and it will be refined and improved on and developed as we go along. So just some, real photographs there of what it was. The picture on the left there is just obviously scanning the bottle before placing it into your recycling box. And the picture on the right there is one of our collection crew actually having to scan the box before placing it into the hopper on the collection vehicle. Here's just some screenshots of what the phone app actually looks like. So the one on the left is you just to start the process, you just hit that scan button. It takes us to the middle photo where it opens up the camera. Scan your bottle, and then simply submit for collection. So it really is a 2-second sort of job to, from scanning to put it into your recycling bin. Okay, so we know, and I've recognised that it's a sort of a little bit clunky, this first sort of phase of this first sort of trial, because getting the collection crews to scan the box as they go just does slow them down too much. It's too, it's not an efficient way of doing it. So we need to look at sort of developing it so that it's not going to impact or minimize impact both on the consumers, residents, in terms of how they handle their bottles, but also on the collection crews in terms of how quickly they can continue to load. So this picture here is actually a bottle which is being printed with digitally printed with the QR codes on them, which are only visible via the UV spectrum. So to the naked eye, you wouldn't see them. But what this gives us the chance of doing is it sort of borrows the technology from the food processing industry, where they can scan thousands of individual items per every few seconds. So if we can use this to capture the codes as they're cascading into the collection vehicle or on a conveyor at the recycling station, we believe this would be the next stage in its development in terms of actually sort of making it a lot more efficient and smooth and having no impact really on the collection crews. So we think there are some real benefits to digital deposit return schemes. Obviously, the main thing is, we've got an existing collection infrastructure in Wales, so we can make use of that. Easy household adoption. So the feedback we've had from the people who participated in the trial was really, really encouraging. People thought it was pretty easy, and they got into the habit of it and didn't really feel it involved a lot more effort. I think it's a complementary technology. I hinted at this before, really. There seems to be sort of two sort of sides to the argument developing. One set will say digital deposit return schemes, throw your lot in with that. The other side will say, no, reverse vending machines at the supermarkets is the way to go. I think probably a hybrid approach with a more weighting towards curbside collections is the way to go. So use the curbside digital DRS for the stuff that we're producing at home, and we can use that the existing collections setup to administer that. But when we're out and about, yes, we should have some reverse vending machines where we can pop in the bottles as we go, if we're just sort of having one or two at a time. It also, as I said before, it retains valuable recyclable materials within the curbside collections, which is really important for us. It subsidises the collection service. And there's also the potential for an awful lot of data to come out of the scanning that we're doing of these products. So what they'll be able to tell you is things like what an individual bottle is composed of. So the next sort of line, the step from that is, when we're placing all our sort of say different plastics through into a bale for onward resale, we'll be able to label that with an exact breakdown of what is in that bale of plastic. What is it predominantly PET or HDPE, whatever, and that will give us the opportunity to be totally transparent in what we're collecting and what we're processing, and also drive quality and improve sort of marketing potential. So the digital deposit return scheme trial's been Wales first. There is some press releases that have gone out today, I believe, from RAP, and I've also seen a story on BBC News website as well about that, where obviously Conway are name checked, which is great. It's been a collaborative project where we've been working with RAP, with Polytag, who are the technology company, and Welsh Government. I've just mentioned the press release. And then it's an opportunity, I think, for us, being in it right at the start of this scheme, that hopefully the council will sort of throw its weight behind this sort of approach to deposit returns to hopefully influence national policy. So that's the end of the presentation. So happy to take any questions.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jim. And it's very pleasing to see that once again, Conway officers are helping lead the way in this new idea. So I'll open it up to the floor for debate. And our first speaker is Councillor Chris Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. This is a welcome introduction by Welsh Government, I think, and I also think it's a no-brainer for local authorities to look at the DDRS scheme. However, the thing that does concern me is that not everybody has a smartphone. Not everybody is physically or mentally able to use a smartphone, yet they might still have their own, they might still live independently. And so what will we be doing to try and ensure equality of service to those people who are disabled or just technologically incapable, unable to do it? I mean, for example, I'll use my mother as an example. She's in her 70s. She's got a tiny little phone with buttons, but it's not a smartphone. And if you asked her to try and use that technology, I tried to teach her how to use an iPad. She just told me where to go after about 10 minutes. So I think it's something that we have to consider, that not everybody can use that scheme, and what alternatives would we be providing to ensure that they're not disadvantaged.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good point. There are sections where of our society who are not going to be particularly with different types of technology. For the trial that we ran, we did try to be inclusive. So there were people who didn't have smartphones. So they were actually provided with for the purpose of the trial, a handheld scanner, which most managed to use. Whether that would be feasible to roll that out, widely in greater numbers is probably debatable. But I suppose this is where the sort of the hybrid approach to deposit return comes in. So, okay, there might be some people who won't want to use a smartphone or are unable to use a smartphone to redeem their deposits. But if they had this a coverage of reverse vending machines, at the corner shop, for instance, which is what has been mooted by the tech company behind this trial, then even though it would take a trip for the householder to the shop to redeem it, they would be able to redeem their deposit that way, sort of in person. But it's hard to get around the actual sort of technology hurdle.
I'm not sure that's so I can understand that's a solution for some, but if on top of the technology issue you don't drive, for example, and you're using buses, I can't see you being able to take several bags of recyclates on public transport, for example. But I think it's something we need to look at, because there are a large number of people, I feel, who will fall into that category of not being able to use the technology for one reason or another, and not necessarily having their own transport to be able to fill the car and take it to a reverse recycling location. And of course, they will still be charged a deposit, so financially they would be there would be a hit for them, but equally there would be a hit in terms of, they may well still be putting stuff in the recycling bins, but they're just not able to secure a deposit on that. And I think that there's an issue there that we need to try and address somehow. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Chris. Councillor Keith Eales.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jim, for the report. I also welcome this because I've seen this scheme up and running in Germany when I've been there. Some of the major manufacturers like Evian, Coca-Cola, and the usual brands have already got these special recycling barcodes in place, because while driving down to Germany, we stopped in sort of France and Belgium on the way down, bought some drinks, and they ended up being recycled in Germany. So there does seem to be a system in place whereby the barcode is, whether it's universal or what, I don't know, but I certainly welcome this. And I take on board Chris's points as well regarding the elderly with regard to handheld scanners. So if that could be tweaked for like a universal system like there is in Europe, I fully welcome that. But the other thing, maybe people can start offsetting their council tax with plastic bottles or something like that, banking them into the recycling. So yeah, thank you for this, and fully support it.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Councillor Keith. Councillor Donald Milne.
Thank you, Chair, and yes, a very interesting topic, and certainly looks like it's got a lot more positive to it than I was initially fearing when I heard some of these schemes a few years back. I particularly like the idea of the fact we're using our existing infrastructure. I have a concern about the protection from fraud that might occur here, in the fact that presuming each bottle is not unique, so you could scan a bottle, say, twice rather than once, and pop it in. Can we check back on that? Again, all deposit schemes, and my knowledge of them goes back even beyond the example that Jim, you were giving. They were always prone to odd bits of, I think fraud's too hard a word for it, but yes, manipulation, shall we say. And I'm concerned also of the problems of on-the-go usage of bottles, because yes, it would be nice if you could scan it and deposit it in any waste bin, but that then again leads into other complications. Are you looking at separate bins for those collections, or can they be used through an ordinary bin? I'm a little bit unsure of what we were doing there. I'm also impressed with the view that we can sort the different types of plastic out at the sorting centre. I'm presuming that there isn't a problem about the fact that the bottles will perhaps be a bit screwed up. Can we actually sort them for the different types of plastic? But even without this system, I think probably some kind of system of sorting the bottles on the conveyor belts would be beneficial anyway. Do we have that technology in place? Can we get that technology? It certainly is the future. And yeah, I think that covers my initial observations. So thanks very much for your report, Jim, and any feedback will be gratefully received.
Yeah, so I mean, from what I'm told, the codes are digitally printed and they are unique. There's unique metadata behind each code, which can give you this whole raft of information, including date of manufacturer, serial number, and everything for each individual item. Is I think is the intention. In terms about the the fraud comment, I think you're absolutely right to have that flagged. This is the first development, first stage in the development of this scheme here. There's potential, I think, for unwanted outcomes, so that has to be designed in early to make sure that it's a completely secure and responsible system. In terms of the plastic sorting, it's not so much being aware of the different types of product to be able to sort the different types of plastics, but it would help us in terms of the marketing that we do. So, for instance, at the moment we might send a bale of plastic which will have different types of plastic in it, and we'll get a set price for it. If we were able to say this particular bale has got 80% PET in it, we might get a better price than we're currently getting. So it's more about being able to market more effectively.
Well, thank you for that, Jim, and Councillor Donald Milne. Councillor Harry Saville.
Yes, thanks, Chair, and Jim, thanks for the presentation. I thought it was really interesting. I think the one concern I've got is you mentioned that part of the process involves an operator scanning the trolley block unit. Am I right?
For the first concept proof of sort of principle for this phase, yes.
Yes. So would I be right in thinking that may not be included in the future?
No, I was trying to get at, I showed the UV scan where we can pepper the bottle with the QR code all around it, and even when that's squashed, the cameras are able to pick that up. So we'd be able to tip the box in as normal. The camera will pick it up without our guys having to manually do a scan.
Okay, right. Thank you for clarifying that bit. I think that's probably actually addressed my question. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harry. Councillor Charlie McCoubrey.
Thanks for letting me speak, Chair, and thanks, Jim, for the report. I'm not going to admit to any illegality, but it was a valuable source of pocket money for me back in the day, routing through bins and returning them to the shops. I think what's most encouraging is the participation by residents, the high uptake on this and what is a trial scheme. I mean, ultimately, as you've all highlighted, it'll need tweaking and we'll need to kind of make it more user-friendly, especially as Chris has illustrated. But if our residents aren't coming along with it, then we're sort of banging our head against a brick wall. So that for me is really encouraging. So I'd just like to thank all the residents who did take part. I think that's really encouraging. Thanks all.
Thank you for your comments. Councillor John Roberts.
Bear with me, Chairman. I'm trying to get back on video. Yes. Jim, thank you very much for this. And also on behalf of the children of Ysgol Pen y Bryn, I'd like to thank you, because I think that's just gone unnoticed that this scheme raised £1,000 for the school. And I'm very grateful. I'm sure that the children and the school itself is very grateful as well. That was an incentive maybe for the people of Colwyn Heights to get part of the scheme. But I also think it could carry on for the people who are unable to scan or can't scan, haven't got the equipment or can't go to the shops. Perhaps we can build a little a business here for the schools themselves to have a team going around collecting those bottles that other people can't scan and turning that into a profit for the school or for any school in any area. But thank you for the scheme, and I'm sure that everybody here in the Heights is very grateful to have that donation of £1,000, which is quite a lot of money these days. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Councillor John, for your comments. And again, Jim, I want to thank you. Obviously, this trial has been a great success, and the proof of concept is in the report. I think it's going to be the way forward. It'll be one of the facets that we use in recycling, and there's a great appetite out there amongst the public, and particularly the younger generations. So members, the recommendation is on page 84. 2.1 is that Conwy County Borough Council continue to lead in contributing towards the development of a practical and deliverable digital deposit return scheme. And 2.2, that Conwy County Borough Council endorse the approach of the digital DRS to safeguard the future curbside collection service. Do we have any members who would like to propose those recommendations? Councillor Harry Saville.
I'll second it.
And Councillor John Roberts, I think, got in there first. So we do have a proposer and seconder. If members are happy, we'll go to the roll call, I think.
No, show of hands.
Is it a show of hands? I do apologise. So if members could please show their hands if they're happy. Yeah, that's been approved. Thank you very much, members. All right then, so we'll now move on to item 10. Oh, sorry. Thank you very much, Jim, for your time, and also your colleagues, which are obviously Garrett Edwards and Andrew Wilkinson. So we'll now move on to item 10, which is the draft interim local housing market assessment, 2021 to 2026. And this is going to be presented by Judith Jenkins, our Housing Strategy and Policy Officer. And it's on pages 93 to 239. And I genuinely hope that the members have taken the time to read through this very important report. Good evening, Judith.
Good evening, Nosaith Darpar. Yes, the purpose of this report is to present the draft interim housing market assessment for Conwy. This is something that we have to do periodically, and although there is, if you like, a principal assessment, and then in subsequent years we can update it with figures. We were, for all sorts of reasons, this interim assessment was delayed slightly, but also COVID has had quite a significant impact on data availability, especially official data, and so there has been a bit of a delay in getting it out. I'm not going to present an online presentation, but I'm just going to summarise some of the findings in it. The local housing market assessment looks at the cost of housing, the supply of housing, and how affordable it is for people in Conwy. And within it is a calculation called the Affordable Housing Need Calculation, which pops out of a sort of a model, an Excel spreadsheet, a number of houses that we need to provide affordable housing being social letting and intermediate types of housing. So this it includes this calculation. The highlights of the report are that we are not building enough social housing and have not for a long time. And as a result, we have a very significant backlog of housing need for affordable housing. Currently, social housing demand is up to about 1,400 households, and the trend is that it's ever increasing. In comparison to former assessments, there's no change in the proportion of households that are priced out of the market. That sits at about 47% of all households. We also look not only at demand and supply, but on our demographic profile, and we can see that our household size is increasingly shrinking, and so we have a great need for smaller properties. Although this was an interim assessment where we were going to update the figures, because of exceptional market changes this year, we did include additional information on market prices, and we were also able to include for the first time some information about private sector renting. We've got much more solid data about the supply of private properties, and also thanks to two studies, one done in Conwy and one done by the Bevan Foundation, we have some reliable statistics on affordability in the private rented sector. So that is presented for the first time this time. We may, since 2015, when the new Housing Act was introduced, have the ability to rehouse households who are homeless in the private sector. The problem is that properties that are available to rent on the market are by and large not affordable for people on an average income or even a low income. During the COVID years, the word unprecedented again comes to the fore. We've had a significant increase in the number of households claiming help with housing costs, and now 52% of, well, in the report at the time it was taken, 52% of households in Conwy that are privately renting are claiming some kind of housing benefit, which is linked to the calculation that the benefits the DWP uses, called the local housing allowance, which in Conwy does not reflect market rates, which, as I've said. I mentioned before that we calculate the affordable housing need, and this is an important consideration for other policy, perhaps most importantly, the local development plan and the land use planning. But we also use, and I will say the whole report informs the housing strategy and supported housing strategy. It underpins all sorts of policy and strategy planning that we do. This year, we have provided more detail about how we provide housing. We've split the housing need figure. The report includes two small tables to show that we have an overall housing need every year of 229 affordable homes, but a small proportion of households that need those homes don't have a local connection. On the South Housing Register, we are able to, sorry, I've just had a message come up the side, you know how it is, completely go blank. The Housing Register includes some households which don't have a local connection, and our colleagues in the local planning team don't need to provide housing for those few households. So we produce two figures there, one to inform a strategic housing policy, one to inform a land use planning policy, which is why the two are split. And the report also looks at the supply of housing from new builds and how we can perhaps look at making better use of housing from existing property and existing dwellings. The housing assessment looks at property that is not used principally as a primary residence. So that includes empty homes, second homes, and short-term lets. Short-term lets have been a bit of a feature of this assessment. The pandemic has led to a really strong demand for holiday homes in the area, and there is a lot of evidence of property investors flipping from residential lets to short-term holiday lets. We're not sure whether this will be a short-lived phenomenon or whether it's just a reflection of ongoing trends. I'm not sure how much time I've got left, Chair, so I can attach to the report were an executive summary and the main body of the report. There's an option for councillors to comment on the content, and if they feel that we need to add something, they can add that. Otherwise, the recommendation is that councillors give their approval for the assessment, and then we can go to a public consultation, and that delegated authority be given to the head of our department and the chair and vice chair of the scrutiny committee to review the responses and make decisions without the need for a full cabinet approval. So that's my report. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much, Judith. Thank you. Councillor Chris Hughes has got his hands up. Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Judith, for the report and also for the presentation today. This shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, although it's sobering, because it's something that some of us have been talking about for several years now. The constant and increasing problems in terms of the lack of affordability of housing within Conway, and yet and nothing seems to ever come of it. We never seem to address this issue. So whilst I'm happy to propose the recommendations, I'm also going to propose that this scrutiny committee set up a task and finish group to look into the issues of affordable housing and bring back proposals to this committee as to how we seek to address the problems which we have here in Conway, because this has been going on to my knowledge for 6 years.
Nigel, you're on mute.
I do apologise. Thank you very much, Councillor Chris, for your comments and your proposal. Can I bring in Councillor Michael Smith?
Thank you for the report, and yeah, the information in there, it's no surprise to anyone, but it does bring it again to the attention of the council and those who are interested in looking at it. So I support the recommendations. The responsibility falls down to ourselves and our social housing partners. They need to build more houses. We need to get them to build more houses. That's their job. And until they keep to their sole purpose, then we will continue to fall short at an ever increasing rate, and we'll never get there. So those social housing partners need to do their part, and we need to support them in getting their goal. There's no other way.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Michael Smith. Jane, you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And for those who may be watching, I'm the Strategic Director for Economy and Place within the county. Councillor Chris has been an advocate of the need for more affordable housing in the county for a long time, and has been calling for us to take action for a long time. Chris, I'd respectfully make an alternative suggestion to what you proposed to members. I actually think we don't need to understand more about the problem. I think we need to crack on with building more houses. And therefore, rather than setting up a task and finish group, I'd like just to let members know what we're trying to put into place very, very quickly. We're obviously all extremely concerned about the levels of homelessness and our ability to provide appropriate affordable housing for families and households across the county. So we're accelerating the development of a programme that will bring forward housing developments much more quickly. We've set up a project team and appointed a project manager, and in January we'll be bringing to this committee a proposal to establish a new programme board to do exactly that, accelerate affordable housing, so that we can crack straight on with trying to unblock the sites that we've got. Many of the things that are holding us back are the complexity of the sites that we've got. That stop us building on them quickly. It can take years to get these sites brought forward. So we're putting a whole load of resource around it, bringing people together, members and officers, to be able to identify solutions to these sites that are stuck, and to put all our weight behind building a big programme of affordable housing as quickly as we can. And as I say, we're already meeting as a project team to do that, and that we're putting the governance around it, hopefully for your approval in the new year. And I hope that will meet with your approval, and we'll also meet what you suggested, Councillor Michael, in terms of getting on with the job.
Okay, thank you very much for that information, Jane. Councillor Chris, do you want to come back?
Well, thanks, Chair. Only to say, well, while I welcome that, I think, you know, members need to be involved. I mean, you know, I first called for a task and finish group 6 years ago when I was actually cabinet member and had to some element of responsibility for older persons housing, and it was rejected at that time. And there is just a desperate need, and people out there are struggling. You know, I talk to people regularly in my own ward who are wondering how they're going to pay their rents. I mean, the rents they're living, a lot of people living in houses where they know that as soon as they move into those properties, it is inevitable that they would develop a debt, that they won't be able to pay their rent, and that their landlord will look to evict them. Many have been fortunate during the last few months because of the COVID regulations that they weren't evicted. But it's, you know, it's a never-ending circle for some people who are in dire straits.
Yeah, we understand that, Chris. I'm sure all the other committee members do as well. It appears that officers seem to have come up with a plan or an idea which they're going to bring to us early January, to hopefully address some of those issues. But I'll leave you with that thought for now and bring in Councillor John Roberts. Councillor John.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's just a question really for Chris, because at the moment there is an affordable housing task and finish group, and I am the chair of that, and Chris is a member of that. I just wonder whether if any issues that he has highlighted could be addressed by that group rather than try and set up another task and finish group. It's just a question, maybe Chris will accept that and then he can bring it up at that affordable housing committee.
It's strange, John, because when that was, if you, and it does say affordable housing and then in brackets says, because when it was set up, yeah, I sat in a room with housing officers and the current cabinet member for housing, Gronway, where we were both members of the same administration, and we actually talked about that being a task and finish group to look at affordable housing, not just the council tax issues. And for one reason or another, in the 4 or 5 months between then and when the group actually met, the reference changed, and I don't know how it changed or why it changed, and there was a change of administration at that time, but where it changed and how it came to change, I don't know. But I would have no problem with that, but the terms of reference that you work to doesn't currently permit that. And you know, I've raised that myself in the past when I chaired that work task and fit group, because there is a desperate need for members to have a say in where we go on this.
Perhaps we could look at that, Chair, with your permission, and see if we can add to the terms of reference. Would that help?
It seems to be a way forward, Councillor John. It'd be interesting. Could I ask Jane Richardson, would she be happy to report to that group if they could change their terms of reference? You're muted, Jane. Sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, I think that's an excellent suggestion, and I've seen that Dawn Hughes has put in the chat that the remit of that group includes bringing long-term empty homes back into use and increasing the supply of affordable housing. So that seems to me a good linkage, and I'm sure members will want us to try not to have those discussions put any delay on our work, because the last thing we want is any pause. We're really hoping to be able to crack on with the work, and we can report back to that group on our progress.
Well, I think, like Councillor John, I feel it would be the best thing is to go through that existing task and finish group rather than having to form another one. So if Councillor Chris Hughes is happy with that, we'll let him think about that for the next few minutes. Councillor Pat Hebron.
Thank you, Chair. I really found this an interesting read. And in particular, I focused on the overcrowdedness aspect of it, which was flagged up, which I'm sure all the other councillors looked at with interest. And this idea that there's so many people in overcrowded situations, and the fact that they have to apply to go on the register again. That's what I read from this. I'd really appreciate if the task and finish group could look at overcrowdedness. It's, you know, I've got a household in my ward, and I think we've been on the list now for about 3 years, and they're really living in cramped conditions. So, you know, and it creates all other issues, you know, mental health issues as well. So I'd appreciate if the task and finish group could look at that. Thank you.
Overcrowding in properties is affecting all corners of the county, including here in the east, and it's definitely something that needs to be looked at. So thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Pat. Councillor Charlie McCoubry, the leader.
Yeah, thanks for letting me speak, Chair. This is something I'm really passionate about. It was the primary reason why I stood as a councillor, especially the pressures in the private rental sector and seeing how desperate people were to pay way too much money for properties that weren't always suitable. I'm really pleased that what Jane's outlined, something I've really wanted to see for you since I've been a member, is to have this at the forefront of what we're doing. And I think a programme board is a really excellent way forward. In terms of the challenges, we know the issues. We struggle for land in Conway. The land we do have is incredibly expensive. Building houses to the new sort of standards required to support the carbon agenda are incredibly expensive. We have relatively cheap properties compared to other areas of the UK. It's much easier for people to come here. We've got better access roads with A55 than we had 20 years ago. So the problems are there. It's money, land, flooding, climate, and a huge demand, and the fact that it's been ignored since probably 2009, and we're reaping what we've sowed, I guess, from that point of view. But I am really keen to do all we can, and I'm really keen to come back and tell members what we're doing, because it's such a hugely important piece of work. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your comments, Charlie. Councillor Bob Squire.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak on this because I've spoken on this issue for so many years I've forgotten, going back 60 years, to be honest. And I've seen it all happen again and again. I support Chris in what he said, and the need for affordable housing, etc., and the lack of affordability. I don't need to go into any of that detail. But in my opinion, successive housing acts have tackled, like Pat's point of overcrowding standards. We've dealt with it in previous housing acts, and it can be controlled. The Welsh Government, I think, should bring in proper legislation and look back at legislation over the years and how we've dealt with these issues. And we've had to bring in things like more stringent local connection criteria and priority need. So you're looking after local people in particular. Now to me, it's a free for all. And what's worse, I think, is that there was somebody mentioned about residential lets going to short-term holiday lets. We know that. And I'm being the focus point from different people who are investors, if you like, who have put in place or who have built flats, blocks of flats. I'm not going to tell you where, but I've had complaints about this, because what's happening is that whereas people are being helped to purchase these sort of flats, there are a number of people purchasing just to use those properties as holiday lets. And I really genuinely, and the leader knows this because I sent him the email, and I've had 2 or 3 emails along those lines. The people who then come in on the holiday lets don't give a damn about standards. And you know how much I've gone on about public health, environmental health, having all this work to do, and they haven't got any staff. I think there's got to be a major rethink, and we've got to tackle landlords. We've got to, and our landlord dictates, we've got to have housing standards that mean what they are. I'm sorry to hog it a bit, Chair, but I remember going back when I was in post, and we brought in a policy for HMOs where there was, and we had an awful lot in Colwyn Bay and still are. And one house in particular, I hope members will remember this, had 15 bedsits, and it was a house that was in Queer Street, if you know what I mean. There was drugs galore and crime, and nobody was happy, and there was a lot of abuse. And we brought in just ourselves at that time, and going back to the 80s and 90s, I know, but we brought in our own standards, which said every single household had to have its own bathroom and kitchen, and the rent had to be controlled. And people were dying for those sort of premises, and it was working. And this particular house with 15 bedsits, we reduced it to 6 or 7 little flatlets. And you wouldn't believe how the impact it had and the improvements it had. But Welsh Government decided in their wisdom to bring in licensing for HMOs, and it gave the landlords opportunity to fill the place again. So it went to the dogs. I'm sorry, but there's an awful lot. And what I'm trying to say, Chair, is I've spoken enough times on this. What I do think is we've got to tackle landlord dictates. We've got to have housing standards, and we've got to go back to the old housing acts which dictated and dealt with things like Pat was on about overcrowding. We had standards for overcrowding where it was illegal. I'm sorry, but we've lost all that. Thank you, Chair.
To be sorry, Bob. I always welcome your comments and your knowledge on these items, so it's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Can I bring in Councillor Donald Mill?
Thank you, Chair, and glad you can all see me. It's working now. In that report, I just picked up on something. It just happened to be refreshed in my mind as you spoke regarding, I think you said something like we were 1,400 properties short. I think that was the figure you quoted. And I just happened to spot at the time empty properties were exactly that sort of number. Now, I know from past meetings the problems that we've had trying to deal with empty properties and the fact there's many that we cannot do anything about. But what suddenly struck me, and I may be totally off beam on this, but how many of those properties are empty because their resident has moved into a home because of health problems? They're left empty for a long period of time.
and the fact that we are improving the facilities. There's new legislation coming in which may change and make it even perhaps easier, that we may have a further problem in that area of the turnaround of those properties. And I just wondered whether there was any way that we could have a breakdown within here as to the viability of some of the long-term empty homes that you've got there. It's just a broad figure, but do we have the data to say what is reasonable that we could return to the market, and what we accept would be an acceptable level to show the normal changeover of properties for various reasons? I hope
It's directed. Yeah. The data we use to look at the empties comes from our council tax record, and so the information we get about the type of households and the circumstances comes from that. I have done some analysis this year to break down the empty homes to show that there's quite a chunk of it which is to do with turnover at the end of life. And because Conwy has quite a high proportion of older people, we get more churn for end of life reasons. And we have it does appear that if a property is empty after 1 year, there can be some stubbornness in its being brought back into use. And I know that we have funding and another member, now 2 empty home officers, to really engage with owners and decision makers to bring properties, to help them make a decision to bring them back into use. I don't know if that answers your question, but we are looking very actively at empty home, bringing them back into use.
Yeah, it was the concern that maybe some future legislation that is possibly coming our way, I don't know, may make that more difficult, because there'll be less of a pressure to return, as you say, the end of life home, empty home situation.
Okay, I'm not aware of that, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was thinking in terms of the amounts that people will have to pay and how much they keep back before they can gain support.
Okay.
So that, I think, is something we need to link with, probably with social services and the like.
Thank you very much, Councillor Don, for your comments. Councillor Charlie, you got your hand up again.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Just in response to Dawn, I think the figures for houses that are empty for more than a year is around 600. What the stats we collect, we consider an empty house 6 months. Now, taking how long it takes to sell a house, 6 months isn't that long a time. Conveyancing is now taking way over 12 weeks. But he's right. With an elderly population, you know, I couldn't leave my house empty. I need to sell it to move to buy another house. But obviously, if somebody's deceased, the family have to deal with that. They have to go through probate. And with an elderly population, we will have a significantly more problems with that. I think our elderly over 65 is a third higher than the rest of Wales. But I'm really pleased we've got another empty houses officer. In my experience of dealing with them, he knows every property intimately. That's been open a long time. Nigel, you know, we've dealt with them, and you ring him up and he'll tell you chapter and verse about it. But it is a challenge and it is a waste of resource, and we do need to do everything we can to try and sort that out. So thanks for raising that, Don.
Yeah. Well, members, we've had a very good debate, and we've got the recommendations, which are on, I think I've just turned over the page, recommendations, which are on page 94, that members consider the draft interim local housing market assessment, or LHMA 2021 to 26, and give approval for the assessment to be issued for public consultation. Oh, hang on a minute, we've got a proposal. Do apologise, Councillor Chris. You did make a proposal.
I did propose the recommendation at the beginning, but I put in an additional proposal. What I just seek some thoughts from Jane Richardson on it in terms of the project board that you're setting up, will there be a quality assurance group attached to that?
There isn't normally a quality assurance group set up for our programme boards, but in a way that's what they task and finish group that we discussed earlier, that's the role that can kind of provide, that sort of sense check and, you know, just checking that we're delivering as per members' intentions, really. The other thing, Councillor Chris, is that there will be a request to this scrutiny committee for a member to join the programme board for the affordable housing programme.
Yeah, and there's usually a member, but I feel that members over the years have spoken passionately, not just myself, but many members have spoken passionately about this issue. And I feel that in the past, quality assurance groups have worked well. They have given the ability for members to support the work that officers are doing, and at times that has led to a more knowledgeable membership when it's come to allocating resources, if there's been a need around that, or looking at properties and making decisions. So I'd be willing to withdraw my recommendation, my proposal for a task and finish group, if there was going to be a quality assurance group attached to that. But I do feel that it should be politically balanced, because I think that there are people from across the council who have spoken passionately on housing and could make a valid contribution towards that group.
Could I come back on that suggestion?
Of course you can.
I really, really want members to feel close to this work and feel they can challenge it and support it. I also want to make sure that my colleagues' time is spent doing everything they can to get the houses built. That our colleagues in housing and homelessness are completely and totally overwhelmed. We're just massively under-resourced in that area, and they are working to the ends of their tether. And I'm putting an extra burden on them now to say I'm setting up a programme board to get housing delivered. And what I wouldn't want to do is tie up their time reporting to multiple committees. So with respect, I think the most efficient use of time would be to use the existing task and finish group to provide that quality assurance function that the programme board can update and report back to, rather than having to get officers attending lots of different committees, lots of different reports, which will inevitably slow down the progress of this piece of work.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree, Jane. And it's not as if, Councillor Chris, it's not as if you're not getting your task and finish group. You're getting the task and finish group that you're already a member of.
Yeah, I mean, if Jane is willing to accept that, I wasn't sure that that would be accepted. But
Yes.
if that's the what's on the table, then I'm happy with that. There's one further issue, Chair, that I wanted to raise, and that is the issue of probate. You know, some 2-3 years ago, the UK government decided to consolidate probate into one office in the Midlands, rather than there being a variety of probate offices across the UK. And we've gone from probate taking as little as 2 to 3 weeks to taking between 9 and up to 2 years in some cases. And I feel that we should write to the UK government on that issue. I'd ask the leader to write on behalf of this authority to the UK government to raise our concerns around the issue of probate offices, and the fact that one probate office in the Midlands is just is not enough, and is contributing to the housing crisis that we are all facing.
Okay, thank you for that proposal, Councillor Chris. Councillor Donald Mill.
Thanks for letting me come back on this. It's in response to Chris's request of a task and finish group. Would it be appropriate that we actually revisited the terms of reference of the existing group to widen its scope, so it's then formally covered by that group? Would that make sense? Perhaps John?
Councillor John Roberts has proposed.
Yeah, I've already suggested that, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and it's fine by me.
That's going to happen.
Can I just confirm, Chair, that the terms of reference do quite clearly state that is within their terms of reference?
Yes.
So I will, what we'll do, we'll send the minutes from this meeting to the task, the working group, I think it's called now. But I've looked at the terms of reference, and affordable housing, as I said in the chat, is within their remit. So so I don't think you'll need to amend them. I mean, you may want to tweak them slightly depending on your discussions, but it's already within that terms of reference.
Yeah. So on that basis, can I withdraw my the proposal on the creation of a task and finish group? Go along with that, but I would repeat my amendment with regards to writing to the UK government regards probate.
Okay. Is there anybody wanting to second Councillor Chris's proposal there? Councillor Pat Hebron. Well done. Thank you. So Jane, do we, sorry, Dawn, should I say, not Jane, Dawn, do we take Councillor Chris's proposal first?
Yes, if we could vote on that first, so members can, and then we'll go to, and then we can include the rest of the recommendations afterwards.
Okay, so the proposal is that Councillor Chris has made is that the leader writes to UK government explaining that we are unhappy with the delays caused by the fact that there is only one probate office operational in the Midlands, I think you said, Christopher, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Which is causing delay and issues in our housing market. Sally, can you call?
Yeah, so I'll call your names out, so it's for, against or abstain. Councillor Carol Beard.
For.
Councillor Phil Capper.
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Councillor Pat Hebron.
For.
Councillor Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Councillor Don Milne.
For.
Councillor John Roberts.
You have my support on that, Chris. Obliged.
Councillor Harry Saville. Oh, I think Councillor Harry might have left. Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
And Councillor Bob Squire.
Obliged.
Yeah, that's unanimous for that one, Chair.
Well done, Chris. That's been approved, and I'm sure that letter will find its way through to number 10 sometime later this month.
After the party.
Yes. Thank you for that. So we'll now move on to the recommendation, which is on page 94, and that members consider a draft interim local housing market assessment, or LHMA, 2021 to 26, and give approval for the assessment to be issued for public consultation. And 2.2, that delegated authority is given to the head of regulatory and housing services in conjunction with the chair and vice chair of Economi and Place Overview and Scrutiny Committee and the cabinet member for housing and regulatory to review the responses to the consultation of the draft interim local housing market assessment and to determine whether they require further scrutiny or can be deferred direct to cabinet for approval. Do we have a proposer and seconder? Sorry?
I did move that earlier.
Okay, so Councillor Chris has approved that.
I'll second it.
Councillor John Roberts has seconded it. Can we put it to the vote, please, Sally?
Yes, I'll read out your names once again. Councillor Carol Beard.
For.
Councillor Phil Capper.
For.
Councillor Jeff Corrie.
For.
Councillor Pat Hebron. Councillor Pat.
Obliged, sorry.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chris Hughes.
Obliged.
Councillor Don Milne.
For.
Councillor John Roberts.
Obliged.
Councillor Michael Smith.
For.
Councillor Nigel Smith.
Obliged.
Councillor Bob Squire.
Abstain.
Okay, so that's everybody in favour and one abstention, Chair.
Okay, so that's been approved. Thank you very much, members. We'll now, oh, could I thank Judith and Peter Brown for that report? A very heavy one for us, but thank you very much for that anyway, and for your time this evening. We'll now move on to item 11, which is an exempt item. And we need to make sure that we're in total privacy here, members, that there's nobody wandering about in the background. If there are, could you please use a headset? We now need to move to closed session, is it?
Yeah, we need to take a vote on that, Chair. So proposer and seconder.
Do we need a proposer? Councillor Philip Capper.
Yeah, I propose, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Second.
And Councillor Jeffrey Corrie to second. We need a vote on that. Is it a show of hands, Sally?
Show of hands on that, please. Yeah.
Okay, if members are happy. Yeah, that's been approved by the members.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
we'll just stop the recording and live stream.